Hey, what's going on? Welcome back to another episode of the Mobile Podcast with Railway to Success, and we have another episode, part 3 of our conversation with Alex.
Yes, sir.
The car rental guru. And so, Alex, what's going on today, my man?
Hey, man, blessed to be here. Appreciate you having me on the Mobile Podcast. We're here for another episode to basically go over just the gems, the hidden jewels that people don't often talk about, or they leave out. And a lot of times in social media or the podcast industry, a lot of people leave out those things to make it seem like everything is just the glitz, the glamour, the glory, and all that other stuff. But they leave out that other piece that is like the point of disappointment, right? And most times, like, you have expectation versus reality, and the gap is disappointment, or it's however you want to work that. So today we're going to be talking about some of those things where it's like that gap. That's what we want to like expose, is that gap, and to give the real message behind everything, and like really show like what's going on. Because again, people get started in so many different things, and then they get disappointed about the outcome and saying, hey, this is not what I thought it was. This is way tougher. This is way harder. This is way everything. I don't want to do this anymore. Right. So we were kind of talking about like how just life is just difficult recently, and we're kind of comparing, or we seen some kind of comparison where it's like today versus being compared to the Great Depression. And so at the front of it, it looked like, oh man, we're doing worse than the Great Depression, right? And so when we were talking about it, I think, what was the average salary for like 1930s?
For 1930s, I think 1931 was $1,500. And 1932 was $2,300, and so that came out to around the 1931, what, 32,000? Thousand and some change. And the second 32 was about 40. Was it 40 or 50,000?
Yeah. So basically, what happened was the video was talking about like 1929, right? And he was saying that when you compare the average annual salary from 1929 and then do an inflation calculator to today, we're actually worse off in a position than what we are in today, right? But what it didn't show was the fact that the Great Depression started at that time. It didn't like last into that time. So you can make the argument that we've been in it. You can make the argument that we're in the beginning stages. We're not going to know until hindsight, right? And so basically what it's showing was that in 1931, it was actually worse than 1930, and 1932 was worse than 1931. And when you adjust it for the inflation of everything, it was like in 1932, average family income was $32,000. Today is $70,000. But the kicker is the fact that the cost of everything is a lot higher. Gas is a lot higher. Taxes are crazy, right? And so when you factor in all those things, it's possible that we really are in a space worse than the Great Depression, right? So that's the glass half empty perspective.
And I would probably argue that we may be, because you look at all of the things where you have AI and all these things where like a lot of people will lose work, will lose their livelihood, and so I would argue we may be in a worse position than the Great Depression. What do you think about that?
Yeah, and personally, my brother was calling me. He was just like, "Yo, look, I'm worried, concerned, because there's layoffs happening in my job, right?" And so he was asking me like, "How do I get into IT? How do I start going about different things? How do I updating my resume and stuff like that?" And so a lot of things are, that people don't know. Right, we're coming out of a really big bull run, right? The longest bull run in American history, led up to COVID, and then COVID happened, and then we just had an even bigger surge of money coming in, being printed and stuff like that. So a lot of people are just like confused and stuck, and then just kind of stuck on the fact that life was good for the past 2 years, right? Or moderately good, because we had the stimulus, we had money being printed left and right. Interest rates were super low, right?
Yeah, scamming money out here.
Scamming money was crazy. Scamming money was crazy. The dating market's terrible. You couldn't even do anything because scammers coming out 15, 20K, and they taking girls out on dates. And
man, that is a whole another episode.
Yeah. So stay tuned for that one, because that is it's crazy, right? But glass half empty perspective is that the fact that we're in a terrible time right now. Things are tough. Things are expensive. Things are people are losing jobs left and right. And if you're not adjusting, then you're going to get left behind. The glass half full perspective is that the greatest businesses that we have came out of tough times, right?
Exactly.
Right? the convenience that we have today, Uber, DoorDash, Instacart, Grubhub, all those came because of the fact that people were eating in more, staying in more, and then COVID happened and the numbers started going
crazy.
It
became a boom. It was a gold mine
It was a gold mine, right?
Because people still wanted to eat out. People still didn't want to cook, but you couldn't go and sit in dining rooms and dining halls with other, restaurants with other people. So yeah, and it was a lifeline for restaurants,
because
the
ghost kitchens was about to go crazy. Like, it was just a whole bunch of things that was going crazy because COVID.
Exactly.
Right. So now let's start talking about like the gyms and stuff like that. Like, let's really get into the thick of things, right?
Okay.
Because a lot of times, like, we were talking about like innovation and trying to compete and how do you stand out from your competition, right?
Right.
These kind of times are those times that's going to really define you as a person and whether or not you're going to excel or if you're just going to be average. And being average, there's nothing wrong with that.
Exactly.
It's just you have to take with what comes with being average, below average, or above average, right? And understand that you have the opportunity to choose whether or not you're going to be average or above average. And just understand that if you want to be above average, it's going to take a lot of hard work, dedication, sacrifice, right? And I don't want to just say that in a cliche manner where people are like, oh, what's the keys to success? Oh, you just work hard and discipline and dedication. Like, that doesn't mean anything. Like, what does that really mean? Right?
What does the steps and the actionable actions we can do?
Yeah, what are the smart goals that you can attach to that to really get there? So basically, when I think of like stuff like being disciplined, it means like, finding something where you do it day in and day out, and you ain't gotta be perfect at it, but you gotta be consistent at it. So prime example, we were talking about the gym, right? Going to the gym 3, 4, 5 days out of the week, right? No matter what happens, that's discipline. Getting up early, right, is another big thing. And I tell people this, you're either going to get on the front end or the back end. Front end means that you're going to do the work that you need to do on the front end, right? So from the time from 4 a.m. to about 6:30, 7 o'clock, nobody's going to be asking you to do anything because it's too early. And most people are either still
asleep. Average people are asleep.
Still asleep, right? Or they just don't want to be talked to at that time, right? Or they're going to sleep and coming off the shift. So that's the front end. The back end is the time between 9 p.m. and about 11:30 or midnight, right? Because most times people are coming off of work and want to chill. They just want to relax. They're going to bed at that time, right?
Right.
So if you get it on the front end or the back end, if you want to supercharge it, you do both, right? Because, and the reason I say front end or the back end, because most people have a job. They can't do stuff between 9 to 5. They can't just walk out and, start studying this and studying that. Now, if you have a job which allows you to have an AirPod in, that's a hack because now you can just be listening to podcasts as you're working. For me, I listen to podcasts, I listen to audiobooks, I listen to cybersecurity courses and stuff like that. In those draining times where nothing's going on and you're just kind of bored scrolling through, social media and stuff like that.
Right.
Right. The next thing is a hack is hacking your algorithm. I tell people, I'm like, look, when you go on Instagram, your Instagram and your TikTok are a reflection of what you're thinking about.
Exactly.
Right?
Your explore page.
Your explore page, right? And so when you go on your explore page, when you start looking at different things, what is it on there? BS stuff, time wasting things. For guys, it's looking at girls. For girls, it's hair products and nails and whatever else that they may be into and stuff like that. And just the cliches kind of stuff. But for me, and I'm gonna just say for me because I can't speak on anybody else. But when I was hacking my algorithm, what I would do is I would not just I look at houses, right? Because I want to get in real estate,
of course.
But I wouldn't look at just houses. I'd look at the super grandiose, super deluxe, high up kind of houses, right? And not just looking at a $500,000 house or $1 million house. I'm looking at a $20 million house, a $50 million house, right? Because I'm normalizing $50 million. I'm normalizing, not just a $100,000 car. I'm normalizing a $200,000 car or a $2 million car. Right? My fault. And I'm normalizing these super grandiose things because when I start coming back down to reality and start seeing, these things, these houses, I'm like, okay, that's cool, but I've seen this. I can't unsee what I saw. You can't unhear what you heard, and you can't go back on a lot of things. So putting yourself in that position of just saying, look, I'm going to go out my way to go find the nicest things and then make that my destination, right? Because once you start getting into that realm, now you start seeing all those different things. Did we go over Raz?
No, but to touch on what you just said, another hack that anyone can do is, if you have a car, you live in any type of city, go to open houses to these houses.
Yeah.
Or, if your city has a Ferrari dealership, Lamborghini dealership, just go to the dealership and just look at these cars and just picture yourself in that car and tell yourself, like, this is my car, like, I'm claiming it, and put you in the mindset of, what do I have to do to achieve this goal, right? So what do you say to that?
I'll give you two examples, right? And one's higher than the other. So the first one was my journey to getting into a Tesla, right? And so what I did was I had a mentor. He told me some advice, and I'll tell you that secondly, because that's the first story. But he was basically like, yo, if you want something, you have to go sit there, touch it, see it, be in it, smell it, everything, right? You have to get that full experience of what is that thing that you want. You have to materialize it. That's the word. You have to materialize it, right? So for me, I was like, all right, cool. I wanted a Tesla, and at the time, I'm driving a 2009 Chevrolet Cobalt, right? If you don't know what a Cobalt is, it is a cash card hoopty of the hoopties.
The economy car to the max.
I'm talking cheap plastic. I'm talking like the seats was so hard. I have like sciatica because of that, right? Not just like do daily stretches because the seats were that hard. The windows, you had to manually crank the windows. The mirrors, you had to manually adjust, right? It was a beater car. I bought it just to do Uber and Lyft so I could offset the cost of my gas for my Dodge Charger, right? And so I'm in that car, and I'm talking that car shaking, and it's got all kinds of issues with it and stuff like that, right? Cheap. And I went to a Tesla dealership, and I was like, yo, I just want to drive a Tesla. I just want to get that experience. What does a Tesla look like? What does it feel like? What does it drive like? And I did, and I got in there, and when the guy was like, yeah, just go ahead and like take the car, I'm like, where's the key? And for those of you who don't know, Tesla has a card.
Man, I had it was an adjustment period for me when I first got my Tesla.
I'm like, yo, what is going on? I'm not trying to buy nothing. And so I get the card, put it in the car, and then like I like slowly start taking off. I'm like, yo, this is amazing. What in the world? Like, it's all these new technologies, the big screen, and it's all these new, exciting, fresh things. So as I'm driving it, I'm just like, I drive off a little bit, and then I start going crazy. I'm like, yo, that's great. Right. And as I'm driving, it starts self-driving. It's taking turns. I'm just like, this is such an amazing, like, wow. Like, and it was a very long time since I've had that wow feeling. And at the end of it all, I'm so impressed with this car. And I'm so hyped about this car. I'm just like, yo, this is amazing. You don't even need gas and all this other stuff. And I finally hand the key off to the guy. I'm like, wow, man. And here's the next thing. The next thing was I had to go back to the Cobalt. I had to go from the plush seats, the dashboard there, to back to an analog, Cobalt. And that joint was just like, it hurt so bad because there's no key to like unlock and lock the car. You had to stick the key in there and unlock it, right?
I'm all too familiar with it.
Yeah, so I'm just like, yo, this hurt bad going from this high experience to now coming back down to reality.
But it made you more ambitious. It made you more hungry, correct?
Exactly. And that hunger and desire of not wanting to deal with that pushed me to the point where I was like, nah, I can't go like that. And I got to the point where I'm like, all right, what is it going to take me to get to that point? What is it going to get me to stay at that point, right? Because getting it is one thing, but staying there is a whole different ballgame. So fast forward, I think it was, I sold that Cobalt, I test drove that Cobalt in like October-ish, like September, October of 2021. And then by March of 2022, I bought the car.
Wow.
Right? So that's one phase. The second one was when my mentor first told me, he was just like, yo, look, I think I was like 19 at the time or something like that. I was close to that age. It was 2017, right? And so my boy had stayed at the apartment complex because we were in college at the time. He stayed at an apartment complex across the street from a Porsche dealership, right? And so they had my dream car, the Audi R8. And so I was telling my mentor that, and he's just like, yo, look, if you want it that bad, you gotta go sit in that car, visualize it, materialize it, touch it, hear the car start up, like just be in that environment, right? And so I was like, all right, cool, F it. So that's what I did. I went over there, played the part. I was just acting like I had money and stuff like that, and they wouldn't even give me the keys, right? They had the keys. They let me sit in the car, and I was just like, yo, this is amazing for me to just be able to sit in the car. Couldn't even turn it on. Right. Couldn't even turn it on. Just sitting in the car in the lot. And, the guy was like, all right, whatever. He's like, so then eventually I left that jump. Right. And fast forward years later, it took me from 2017 to last year, 2022. So 5 years of working on that goal constantly and consistently to be able to buy that car. And I bought the car, that dream car, the Audi R8 at 25 years old, right? And I say all this long drawn out story to basically say, yo, look, it might take you a year, it might take you 5 years, it might take you 20 years, but the consistency is what's going to get you to the goal. It doesn't matter whether or not, it took you 20 years to get to that goal, because once you get it, you're overnight success. Now everybody's like, oh man, I remember just yesterday, he just started. And it's like, what are you talking about, right? So I'll give you an analogy that same mentor gave me was basically the story of the bamboo, right?
Right.
It's a bamboo analogy. Basically, it was a story of a guy who went out. I don't know if I spoke about this on the last one, but I'll say it again.
Yeah.
Basically, it was a farmer. He went out to go plant these seeds, and he planted the seeds and everything, right? And every day he would go out and water them. And every day people would go out there and ridicule him, like, yo, what are you doing? There's nothing to show here. You have all this work and you have nothing to show for it, right? And in most people's lives, that's what they have, is nothing to show for it. So he would go out day in and day out, going to water these plants, didn't matter, right? And on the 5th year, right, of him being ridiculed and all this other slander and stuff like that, 5th year, they grew 3 feet per day until they hit 90 feet, right?
Wow.
So now all of a sudden he's got this big bamboo forest, and now everybody's like, yo, this guy's an overnight success. Like, look at this. This is amazing. It's like he barely put in any work. I remember he just got started yesterday. And what they don't see is the fact that, yo, look, they don't see the fact that you put in all this work and this hard, this effort to get to this point, right? They don't see the background. They don't see the sweat. They don't see the tired nights, the sleepless nights, the crying, the financial losses that you're taking. They don't see the heartaches and everything else that goes into this business and that you're putting into your business to get to that point. But what they see is the success.
Correct.
What they're going to judge you on is the success, right? So it doesn't matter how long it takes you to get there, as long as you get there. What's your thoughts on that?
I agree. Like, as you said, it's one of those things where everyone sees the finished product, but no one sees the early mornings, the late nights, the time that, that it's just you by yourself, your friends out having a good time, and you're at home saving your money or working, So I definitely agree with that sentiment. It's like what gets you where you want in life is just the dedication and the discipline and building that muscle of, doing this every single day, even when you don't want to do it. And there's, like you said earlier, like there was times where, I don't want to record, but you know what? Where I want to go in life and my goals, building a brand is a must.
Yeah, it's the most important priority.
And like I always say this thing to people, like, if you want to be a successful entrepreneur, like, you have to have a brand, like a personal brand, because people buy from people. They don't buy products, they buy from people.
Right.
What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, a lot of people get that mixed up. They just don't understand that you have to develop the brand, right? And even for us, like, we're trying to develop the brands, and it's not an easy process. But people they're buying off the fact that they believe in you and they trust in you. If they don't like you, they don't trust you, they don't believe in you, they're not going to buy from you.
Exactly.
Right? It's people got to realize things are a people business.
They're going to look at you like a snake or a salesman.
Yeah. So it's like you yourself have to be a good person to be able to, like, translate that message to the people, right? You have to be, as an entrepreneur, you have to be a master orator, right? What I mean by that is you have to be able to figure out the optimal way to get your idea, your image, your whatever you got going on from up here out into a vision where other people can not only see it, but understand it, right? Because if people can't understand your vision, they're not going to believe and follow it because they're just going to think, yo, this is just a pie in the sky idea.
And if you're not sold on your vision or put in the work on your vision, who's going to put in the work for it?
Yeah, because why would somebody else put in the work for your idea?
Exactly.
Unless they're trying to steal it. Now, that's a whole different ball game. But at the end of the day, just staying that consistent and disciplined to say, hey, look, I'm either going to get on the front end where I'm working on my business and there's no other distractions, or the back end and I can work on stuff with no distractions. How you divvy that up is entirely up to you, right?
Right.
You understand that your day is divided up into 24 hours. How you spend each of those hours is entirely up to you, right? And the differences that I'm seeing between people who are successful who are versus not are, one, the people who are disciplined and consistent, two, who figure out how to employ systems for them,
Right.
Three, how do they delegate tasks to other people, right? So if you have the discipline, if you are, have systems oriented, and a good book for that, I think we spoke about it last time.
It's Work the System.
Work the System. I'm actually rereading that one today.
I'm reading that next after I finished this Sell or Be Sold by Grant Cardone. That's the next book I'm reading.
So understanding the systems and then understanding who, not how, which is another book. Like understanding that you have to figure out who can do the work for you versus how. For me, I know I'm not good at marketing. I know I'm not good at filming. I know I'm not good at like photography. None of that stuff. Can I do it? Yes, but it's going to come at a point where it's like subpar.
Are you not good at, or is it just not your passion? There could be a difference.
I would say both because I can be good. I can be proficient.
Yeah.
Right. I would say proficient and then good and then great and then relentless. Right.
Right.
And so when you understand those dynamics of being proficient versus a passion, like you said, you're right. I'm not passionate about any of those things. I'm passionate about the end result, but I'm not passionate about that process to get to that point. If you're not passionate enough about whatever your process is, it may not work out. And I think that's another big key is.
Or I would counter with that.
Go ahead.
That's what I would counter. I would say it may work out. It's just that you may need to focus. Like if you're building a business, you may need to focus on another aspect of the business and hire out which you're not passionate about.
Fair enough. Yeah. So that's a really good point. Is that look, at the end of the day, I may be good at one thing, you're good at another thing. And that's why we combine forces, because you're good at the film, the photography industry. I'm not. I might be good at talking about different things and giving different perspectives, but I'm not good at everything, right? And that's why I labeled my YouTube Jack of all trades, because I'm proficient in a lot of different avenues.
Make sure to get our YouTube channel a look as well.
So I'm good at a lot of different avenues, but I'm not great at so many of them. I might be great at talking about different things and showing people different avenues and routes, but that's because I made so many, mess ups in my life that I can talk through those things and say, yo, look, this is what I realized once that happened, right? But combining strengths and weaknesses or playing in strengths and weaknesses is going to be so optimal for the new entrepreneur, because at the end of the day, it's like, yo, look, if you're not collabing with somebody and sharing ideas, it's going to take you so much further. And that's the big thing that really hindered me as a up and coming entrepreneur. And I think that people who are young and entrepreneurs that are trying to like get into it, I think that's the biggest mistake, right? Trying to do everything on your own.
Right.
I think it's good to do things on your own to learn the process and know what's good versus what's not good, what you like and what you don't like, right? I think you should try as much as possible, but I think you should do it with a team, because at the end of the day, if having somebody to bounce ideas off of, having somebody to pick up the slack where you may be slacking, or having somebody to, bring a different perspective into things is going to be so much better, because at the end of the day, if you're trying to bounce ideas off yourself, everything's going to sound great. Everything's going to sound.
There's no one to hold you accountable or for new ideas.
Yeah.
The best ideas come from think tanks. That's why like co-working spaces are so popular, because just to be in that environment with creative minds all around. That's why Google and Apple and all these tech companies. That's why like they have the co-working space set up. It's because they want the great minds to come together and think of best practices and things like that. Exactly.
Yeah, and that's a great point that you bring up. It's just like being in those environments, and I'm going through it right now, right? So I want to move out on my own, but it's like, do I want to move out on my own or do I want a roommate? And it's like these like ebbs and flows where I'm having to like weigh out the pros and cons. Where it's like if I can move in with someone who is like minded and has that, then it's like, yo, we're taking off, right? But if you move in by yourself or if you're doing things by yourself, then it's just like you can go a lot faster because at the end of the day, things are done the way that you want them done. But just because you're getting it done the way that you want it done does not mean that that's what the market wants done, right?
Right.
And I learned that the hard way with the car business, with real estate, with a lot of different things where it's just like, yo, nah, this is going to be great, right? And the market comes back and says, I don't know who you think you was, but it ain't that, right? Yeah. So now you just got to identify who your core crew might be. And I think there was a guy from CIA, and he was just basically like, there's like these different animal types, or the way that the CIA like categorizes stuff.
Yeah, I think I've seen that interview before.
Yeah, and it was like I can't remember the animals, but it was like basically like there's 5 types of animals or 4 types of animals, 1 and 2, and you have to first align yourself with one of those animals and to figure out what kind you are, and then align yourself with the other types, the other personality types. So. I think there's a website called 16 Personalities or something like that, where you can take a personality test and then understand your strengths and weaknesses, right? You need to objectively know your strengths and weaknesses because at the end of the day, you may think that you don't have a weakness or you may have a blind eye to your weaknesses and not realizing, oh, wait a minute, I wasn't doing this thing right because I'm trying to do it this way.
Right.
I'm trying to bulldoze it when in all actuality, I need to like finesse it. Or you're trying to finesse it, in actuality, you need to bulldoze it, right? So having that blind eye to things could be detrimental to you. But at the same time, understand that everything that you go through in today is a lesson that you can pass on to somebody else, right? All the things that I can like portray to you guys to let you guys know, hey, I tried this, it didn't work. I tried that, it didn't work. I tried this and it did work. All of those things happen because I made the mistake or I went out and made that choice to go ahead and get in front of somebody and say, hey, look, I don't mind looking dumb. I don't mind looking stupid, but I don't know what this is. Right. And having that ability to say, yo, I don't know what's going on or I don't know exactly what I'm doing. Can you help me? It's going to be such a big game changer for people because at the end of the day, it shows that you're willing to learn, that you're coachable, that, things are okay to the point that your ego is not such in a position where it's like, nah, you can't tell me nothing. And that's what people who are wanting to be coaches and mentors, that's what they look for. Is, are you coachable? Will you come back? Are you dependable? Are you,
do you take action?
Do you take action?
Or are they just talking to someone just to hear them talk, that I believe like that is one of the things I've struggled on is because I can hear the information and I can receive the information. But there was a disconnect because at all times I was not taking action, and so, like to be completely vulnerable, like I was in a position where, I myself, like, my story where I was doing really good at a certain point, but I didn't build the right systems and I didn't do everything that I was told to do by different mentors. And, and I had to take a step back, where like I have to start, like I ain't gonna say start all over, but to rebuild and to build a better foundation than what the last foundation was.
Yeah. Sometimes you gotta take that step back. Sometimes you gotta restart and be fresh again, right? In nature, it still happens, right? When there's a volcano, when there's a fire, right, and it wipes everything out, it's not wiping everything out, it's wiping that top level out for the new seeds to grow. Because if you ever look at after a fire, stuff still blooms up again.
Exactly.
Right? Another prime example, when I went to Puerto Rico for a month, they were like, yo, the entire island was brown. Right? And it's that feeling, just like that depressing feeling of like, oh, everything's gone now. Everything is now wiped away. And I'm pretty sure a lot of you guys can relate to this, where it's like you feel as though you've hit rock bottom. You hit, the lowest point of your life. You hit a point where, there is no return. But in actuality, the seeds were planted there for you to grow and to develop. You just have to go into a dark place because a seed grows in dark places, right? A seed is planted in the soil. There's no sunlight. Exactly. Right? It gets water, it gets the nutrients that it needs, and all the growth happen. The major parts of the growth happen underground in the dirt, right? Somebody has to throw dirt on top of you for you to grow up and be the person that you need to be, right? And it's a reality that most people don't want to hear. But at the end of the day, that's called wisdom, right? For you to get thrown on the ground, kicked down, right? Somebody took money from you, somebody took an investment from you, somebody took something from you and it hurt so bad, or you lost it all, or a portion of it all, and it hurt so bad that you're just like, yo, look, I have nowhere to go but up, because I'm now at this low point. And understanding that once you get your point to the where your back is against the wall, right? Now it's like fight or flight. You're either going to mold or fold. You're either going to mold into the person that you need to be and become the person that you want to be, or you're going to fold, and then life is just going to keep taking advantage of you. But understand that life is basically saying, yo, look, I need you to be X person.
Right.
I'm going to keep throwing these things at you to make sure that you become that person. Now, whether or not you decide not to be that person, that's on you, right? But it's also up to you to basically say, yo, look, I want to be that person. And I'm going to start switching the mindset that I think of things, right?
Right.
I'm going to switch around the way that I view things. Instead of it being negative, I'm going to say it's positive, or it's an opportunity to learn. It's either, you don't have failures, right? The only time you fail is if you quit. You have lessons and you have blessings, right? A blessing is something where stuff went right and it's like, oh man, this is great, right? So us doing the Mold podcast is a blessing, because now we get to, portray to the audience what we're thinking, our thought process, and stuff like that.
Exactly.
Everything that we're going to learn and hit on the way up is a lesson, right?
Right.
It's a lesson to say, yo, look, if you want this, you have to adjust this. You have to rearrange your thought process on this, right? This thing happened to you, and now you have to go back and say, whoa, let me take that step back. Let me take a step back to understand who I am as a person, who my team is as a group, and what our goals are as an overall, right? So what I was talking about earlier is what's called your RAS, your RAS, right? Your reticular activating system. And whatever your RAS is, I'll give you an example. You ever just buy a car, and now all of a sudden you start noticing that car a lot more often? You're like, yo, that car, hey, the car,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
But the car is always there, but you're just not focused on it. Another example is, let's say we're riding in the car, right? And you got the radio on and we're listening to 95.5, right? Most times, what's on 95.5?
R&B, hip hop, things like that.
Right. Okay. So, but if you go to, let's say, the country channel, would you hear that same music?
Not at all.
Okay. Right. You might hear a little static here and there, but for the most part, you're going to hear the country music, right? Or you're going to hear the R&B. You're going to hear one or the other. You're not going to hear the same, right? And so what that is you're on that frequency, the 95.5 frequency. So you're not going to hear anything else. Again, you might hear a little static from here and there, but overall, it's going to go back to 95.5 is the main thing. So now what we were talking to, basically tie everything in, we were talking about hacking your algorithm, viewing things from a glass half full perspective, right? And these things are trained. You have to train your mind to do this stuff, right? Because once you start doing these things and hacking your own mind, now you start viewing life as a glass half full perspective, right?
Right.
Your RAS is now focused on glass half full kind of stuff. That's why I say I look at things as lessons or blessings, not failures. Excuse me, because my RAS is so focused on productivity, improvement, goals, right? Achieving those things, executing those things, that I'm just like, yo, look, if this one thing, this door closed, it was for a reason. Now, how hard it closed in my face and how much of a disrespect I took that's on me personally. But at the end of the day, life is like, dog, that was not your door. I don't know why you tried going through that door. You need to go through this door. And if you're just there banging on the door, now you're trying to go like, life, what are we doing here? I thought that was my door. And life's like, no. And you're like, well, I'm gonna keep banging anyway, right? Understand that from time to time you have to take a step back and then say, yo, look, why was that door not for me, right? And when you start getting to that introspective perspective, now you start going at life a lot differently. You go at it calmer, you go at it more focused, more relaxed, right?
Right.
And there's so many things that can happen to you, but you're so used to being able to deal with stress that now it's like, yo, I'm not even worried about that, right? I ain't worried about this little thing anymore. It used to be a huge thing. It used to be so monumental that it would stop my entire week. But now it's like, bro, I'm good, right? And you get to that point where now we're going full circle back, right? The mindset thing of where the successful people telling you to be disciplined, do hard work and stuff like that. It starts with the mindset. You have to train your mind and hack your algorithm to say, look, I'm going to solely focus on these positives. Negative things happen in life all the time. We get it, understood. We acknowledge it. Life happens. I'm not saying that life never happens.
Yeah, you can't run from that. It's gonna happen.
You can't stay on that though, right? Yeah. That's my point. But once you get to that point where you have the mindset of like, oh, okay, now I'm open to a lot more things. I'm open to these opportunities. I'm open to hearing your message. I'm open to receiving these things. Okay, cool. Now these opportunities are going to start flooding in. And it's up to you to filter which one that you want to go through, right? When the price is right, you can choose door 1, 2, or 3. It's entirely up to you. You make the choice and the decision, but you also don't get to have a choice in the outcome of that decision, right?
Right.
But the thing you do get to have a choice in is the way you respond to that thing, right? For example, if I choose door 1 and door 1 was the worst one I could have chosen, and now life happened and I lose a lot of different things, I couldn't control that because I opened that door up, right? I opened up Pandora's box. What I can control is how I respond to that situation. Like, oh, okay, that hurt. Yeah. That's cool. I ain't worried about that because I know there's a bigger purpose in life. And I'm going to focus on that bigger purpose in life until I get to that point where I reach and achieve that bigger purpose in life. Now, whether or not you do it, that's the thing we're talking about, the discipline. Whether or not you do it, that's the thing we're talking about, hard work. Whether or not you do it, that's the thing where it's like, those are the moments where it's character defining. What are you going to do to define your character and how you're going to respond? Are you going to be the person that people say, nah, don't go to him. He's the wild one. You don't know what he's going to do. He's going to pop off. He's going to he's not going to have the right emotions, right? Or do you want to be that person like, yo, no, go to him because he's going to get it done. He's going to be calm. He's going to show you how to get it done. That's the guy.
Right.
Right. In order for you to be the guy, you have to go through these situations. Right. And if you go through the situation, right, that is the character defining moment. Now you become the person that you need to be on the inside so you can express it on the outside. So that's all I got for today, man. You got anything else to add on it?
Man, you've said enough. You said more than enough. And man, it was a lot of these conversations have been really productive and really mind blowing and insightful. You're giving away a lot of gems and especially for people our age or younger who look up to us and see the things that we see on Instagram or Facebook or whatever, who may not get to see the everyday nuances of our lives. Like, these is very insightful. But man, I have nothing else. Thank you for coming over and just doing another episode. This has really been awesome.
I do got to add on that you said something.
Okay.
I'm gonna be honest. Even in these talks, sometimes I don't even feel like I'm like preaching like that. I'm just like, yo, I'm just ranting.
I don't feel as though you're preaching. I feel as though you're, you're giving a lot of game.
Yeah, that's why. Let me take a step back. Sometimes I don't even feel like I'm like giving out a game. And it's a weird dynamic because like you work so hard to become that guy,
right?
And to like get your message out there and for people to actually listen to what you have to say, because everybody wants to be heard,
right?
And you work so hard to get to that point, and we finally get to that point, and then people start listening. It's just like, bro, it doesn't, not to be cocky. It's just like sometimes it's this weird feeling because it's like I'm not saying anything monumental, but understand that there's certain things that you might say to somebody, and that might be the tipping point for that person, where it was the exact thing that they needed
at that time,
no matter how big or how small.
Exactly.
Right. And again, I got the Audi R8, and nobody listened to me before that. Right. Nobody listened to me before I got the Tesla and the house and all the other stuff. And I started networking and I started like really growing my brand. Nobody listened to me, but I was still saying the same stuff.
Exactly.
Right.
But now they have proof. You have with a social proof.
Exactly. Yeah. And that's why I catered my it's funny we said I ain't got nothing else, but we're going for another rant, but
it's all good.
Right?
Give some more game, baby.
So the thing is that to the effect of no one wanting to listen and stuff like that, I catered my Instagram towards that. Like before, it was just whatever I was posting, but most of it was just inspirational messages. Mm-hmm. And then I again talked to the same mentor who told me about the Audi and everything else, and like sitting in it. And he's like, yo, most people are not going to listen to you because you have nothing to show for it. If you don't have anything to show for it, you have to work to get to that point to where you can show it, because nobody's going to listen to somebody that they think is broker than them, right? It doesn't make sense because, again, it's not to say like you are homeless, but just in an example sense, would you take advice from a homeless guy? You probably wouldn't, right? No. Because it's like, what are you going to tell me that is going to help me in my situation?
Exactly.
Right?
I don't aspire to be in your position.
Right. You're not in the position that I want to be in, so why would I listen to you, right? And so a lot of times it's a very difficult time, because as an entrepreneur or somebody who knows that they're destined for greatness, or who knows that they have this innate ability within them but can't portray that because they're not getting, the recognition or exposure that they need to, keep working, keep hustling, right? Because eventually it will pay off. Eventually you will get to that point where people want to listen to you, right? Before, like I said, before I got the R8, nobody wanted to listen to me.
Right.
I had very, 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 very few friends. I could count on one hand the amount of friends who actually wanted to listen to me. And even them were like, Alex. After like 15 minutes of you talking, it's too much, bro. Like, you got to go ahead and just keep it pushing, because like this is too much. But at the end of the day, understand that the top 10% move different than 90% of the people,
and they wasn't ready for the game yet.
It wasn't, right? So if you got an idea, if you got something that you're working on, understand that 90% of people are not going to agree with you. It's only going to be 1 out of 10 people that actually believe in your message, believe in what you got going on, believe in what you're saying, right? And are willing to take action with you, right? And you have to search through so many people to get to that one person, right? So if you can't find that person or find that team, understand it's okay, but start putting yourself into those positions of where you can find those people. Eventbrite, meetup.com, Facebook meetups, right? Or Facebook groups where you can go and meet up with these people who are like, hey, look, we're all in a real estate group chat. We're all in a car business. We're all in tech. We're all in whatever that you got going on, a clothing line business. Go to those conferences, go to those events, go to those meetups, right? Get aligned with those people and understand that those people are also going to be busy, for one. So you might not be able to meet up with them all the time. But those times that you do meet up is going to be so monumentally changing, because it's like understanding that somebody's there with you to say, hey, look, I know what you're going through. I understand you. I receive it. I'm right there with you. So let's go ahead and get this together. And understand that you're also going to get in business with people, that you're also going to get out of business with people, right? Because not everybody's going to align with everything which you have long term. There's going to be people who align with you short term, midterm, and long term, right? There's a season and a reason for people,
right?
And it's okay. But you take those lessons from each interaction, each relationship, and take that, extrapolate the good part, take it to the next one, and keep it pushing, right? Imagine if you have 10 people that you eventually go through and you took 10% from each one, right? But it's a compounding 10%. Right? So now, instead of a 10x return, you might have a 100x return. You might have a 1000x return, because you took those key measures and key things that you needed, implemented them, rolled it over to the next person, and started the process over again. And you finally get to a point where someone's like, yo, you got it all figured out. You know everything. You got all the answers. And you're just like, nah, I just made so many mistakes along the way that I learned from them.
Exactly.
And came back and it's just like, yo, look, these are the things that work for me. They can work for you. They may not, but that's okay. But at least take some of that and then extrapolate it and then run on your own.
Exactly. So, like, we can give you all the game in the world, but the best experience, the best teacher is life. Like, failures is the best teacher. And it, like we said, it's not even a failure, because it's a lesson.
It's a lesson.
It was a lesson that you were supposed to learn that you might not have learned in any other volume, but you have to experience it to feel what what it feels like, and you have to just tell yourself like, I don't want to be in this position ever again.
Yeah.
And so that
pain motivates people.
Exactly.
Pain motivates people because at the end of the day, that back against that wall feeling where you ain't got nothing else and you just like, yo, I have to fight to get out. That's going to make you move. Like there's times where last year I was facing bankruptcy myself. Right, I just got my house. I just got my Tesla. Right.
For transparency, I just filed for bankruptcy, so let's let y'all know. Like I'm going through, like adversity, but I'm going to bounce back.
And that's the thing I be telling people. I'm like, yo, the social media and the podcast, people always want to make it seem like everything's all like great and everybody's a guru and everybody's making money and everybody's the top 10%. When in actuality, the top 10% is top 10%.
Exactly.
Right? And so knowing that, yo, look. We ourselves are not perfect. We ourselves have issues and things going on, but understand that you need to hit those rock bottom portions of your life to be able to elevate, because when those rock bottom moments hit, oh, say less. Yeah. I know I don't like that. I know I won't go back to that. Going from the Tesla to the Cobalt, I know I'm not coming back to this Tesla or this Cobalt, right?
Going back from the Tesla to the Dodge, Charger, exactly, and going back to a Kia Optima. Oh man, it sucks. It sucks.
I went to Puerto Rico for a month. And I came back. And I was like, "There's no way."
Exactly.
Right? Things were laid back. Things were different moving. I was on my own, right? And there's certain things that you need to hit, especially as as a young entrepreneur or even a starting entrepreneur. You need to hit those things where it's like, I know I don't like that, and I know that I don't want to go back to that. So I'm going to fight as hard as I possibly can. One last thing I'm gonna say before we head out. Another example is in November I'm going to California. First time on the West Coast, right?
Nice.
I'm flying over economy, cool, whatever, right? But I'm flying back first class, right? And I'm using my Amex points. Shout out Amex, right? I'm using my Amex points to pay for the flight there and back, right? So I'm not paying anything out of pocket, but I'm getting the experience coming back first class. Because I know once I hit first class and I get the exposure to first class, I'm like,
don't want to go back to economy.
Can't go back. Economy. I can't go back. I can't be like, sir, do you want chips or a drink? It's or. It ain't both, right? I can't go back to that. I'm like, nah, bro. Like I got the Amex Platinum, right? Shout out Amex again. I got the Amex Platinum and I got the Sky Lounges, right? The access to all the lounges and everything. And I also got access to the priority pass or something like that.
Yes, priority boarding.
Right? Well, it's not priority boarding. It's the one where it's like TSA pre-check. That's what.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
Bro, I can't go back. I cannot go back because I was late for a flight. Like I'm habitually late for flights. Don't know what it is, right? And I just remember when I was in Atlanta, it was the longest line to get into that jump, right? Through TSA.
Yeah, I remember that.
And I remember literally. I'm like, yo, I have TSA pre-check. And I literally had one person that was in front of me going through the pre-check line. And boom, belt off, that's it. Just like, all right, cool, you go walk through as you are. I'm like, whoa, right? Went straight through, made my flight. And I was like, bro, there's no way. And if you want TSA pre-check, go to Staples, right? Staples sells it. Not all of them do, but a certain Staples sell it for like $70, $80, right? $80 to be able to skip the line, right? So again, having those experience things the first time just to get the experience. Don't do it like crazily, right? If you just don't go out and be like, oh, I'm gonna go to Las Vegas and get a $5,000 a night room. I'm not saying that. Do it reasonably and responsibly to basically say, look, this is a business decision. When I'm coming back from San Diego, I'm flying first class because the person that I sit next to or sit around for first class, right? I'm locked in with that person for 4 hours. And if they're coming back to this DC area, that means they possibly may go back and forth to DC to San Diego or the California area regularly, or they're coming back and that's a person that I can network with. That's a person I can like parlay with, chop it up with. You never know who's on that. And that's an expensive flight, right? But again, shout out Amex, all paid for. Exactly. So you want to do the outro?
Yeah, man, I do the outro. I appreciate you guys for checking out another episode of the Mobile Podcast. Sure. I hope that you got a lot of gems and a lot of wisdom today. Be sure to check out the next podcast episode. You can listen on audio on Spotify. Let's also check out the video on YouTube.
It's very tough.
And so I appreciate you and thanks.
Let's go.
Peace.